Loving, lying enemy. I have seen your face before. Never thought again I'd see. Didn't want to anymore.
Hello and welcome to Sideways. This week we're discussing something we often find hard to do when it involves other people, and even harder to do when it doesn't. Martin tells us about homing pigeons, and I experience audio recall from the 1970s. Forgiveness.
Yes, good morning. How are you doing?
Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you.
You look as if you've got one of those fake cigarettes you used to buy in Pettit's down down in the market buildings. Is that what you got there? Is that what you've got on?
It is a candy sweet. Yeah.
No, don't you remember those ones that they were look just like cigarettes, and instead of sucking you blew, and they blew kind of smoke out the end of them. Do you remember?
I do. I'd forgotten about those. Yeah. The junior fags, I think they call them. They get you involved early.
I can remember you used to walk down the road sort of puffing away at one of those, and adults would give you very disapproving looks. It was quite enjoyable.
Yeah, it was good fun. It was the first time you ever sort of had an anarchic streak in yourself, wasn't it?
What's happening then?
What's happening? Well, I wanted to talk to you today. Well, I had a couple of working titles for this one, and it's sort of, I think I've just come up with one simple one, really, because the first one I come up with was Why Should We Forgive?
Yeah.
And then I changed it to Why We Should Forgive, which...
Yeah. Why don't you just call it Forgiveness?
That's what I've come up with in the end, because I couldn't really get the title right to reflect what I'd been writing in my notes and researching and stuff. So
it's actually it's ironic, really, because are you able to forgive your own stupidity at trying to make a complex title when a simple one would have done the job?
I have now, thank you. Yeah, I've settled down with that. Yeah, excellent. I'm happy with that. Yeah. So that's pretty much done.
Yeah, that's it. So you've discovered the secret to forgiveness.
Well, I was hoping you could throw some light on this, from a therapist's point of view, because it comes up often in groups, but it falls into two distinct categories.
Go on.
Yeah, the first one being, being able to forgive others, really.
Yeah.
And then the second part was being able to forgive ourselves.
So in your experience in group, which one of those do you think people struggle with the most?
I would say forgiving yourself comes up more often. It does come up more often, but the first one I think is really important, isn't it? Because we're sort of unable to move on if we don't look at the harm done to us by others, and to be able to forgive and to adjust ourselves accordingly. I think we can get stuck, can't we? And I remember thinking about this myself, and I was thinking, people that had done me harm in the past, and I'd gone through this whole sort of cycle of wanting revenge, and I don't know, I was getting, it was sort of eating me away, and then looking at other people's situations, and a story came along. One of the girls in group told us this story, which put things in perspective for me to a large extent. Really, it's pretty horrific, and I won't go into the full details here because that wouldn't be appropriate. But basically, one of the girls had been attacked by a partner in the family home and left for dead.
Yeah.
It was quite a complex issue, but she was left for dead, and she ended up surviving, obviously. And he ended up in jail for attempted murder. And you can imagine, when she was telling this story in group, people were saying, "Oh, it's one of those stories that's pretty shocking." And you hear some stuff in groups that can be quite upsetting. But this one was taken to a different level. But she was able to move on into recovery, and still is, and she continues to be a real inspiration to me, because what she did, she got involved in the restorative justice system, where the victim can go and meet the perpetrator and start to make some sort of inroads into the understanding of what happened and why it happened, and perhaps go on to to get a level of forgiveness on both parts, because victims can often feel very guilty about it all, can't they?
Yeah. Yes. I think the thing with forgiveness is, or rather one of the things that prevents people from feeling forgiveness is tied up with the way that we define it. So I think part of the difficulty is that often we think of forgiveness as something we're giving to someone else. It feels for a lot of people as if we say, I forgive you, that feels, I think, to a lot of people as if that is the same as saying, oh, what you did to me was okay, right? And if you see it in that way, then you can understand why people would struggle to forgive.
Yeah.
But if you see it in a slightly different way, if you see forgiveness as something that actually you are awarding to yourself, it makes a difference. So, for example, if someone's done something destructive or hurtful or painful to you, and you see forgiveness as effectively you saying, listen, what you did to me was not okay, but I don't want to carry it anymore. I don't want it burdening me. I don't want it weighing me down anymore. So by forgiving you for it, I free myself from having to carry it through the rest of my life. And I think the closer you can get to that kind of definition, maybe not specifically, but that way of seeing forgiveness, I think the easier it is for us to forgive, because it doesn't feel as if forgiveness is letting someone off the hook. It feels as if it's something positive we're doing for ourselves.
I think that's a really important distinction, and it sort of came across. I was watching a YouTube clip where this lady in America, and someone had broken in and killed her brother and her mother. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I thought, how could you ever forgive that person for doing that? And she went on to explain that it was a gift she gave to herself, exactly what you were saying, because she felt like she was tied together with this person. Mm-hmm. It was like she was dragging him around. She described it as like having a big meat hook in your side and a long rope, and that person on the other end, and she was dragging that around with her the whole life, and she had to find a way of freeing that or to getting rid of that burden, so she could move on with her life. And so she had therapy and she did a lot of work on it, but she did come to terms with it and was able to disconnect herself from that person in that way. I think the feeling of wanting revenge can hold you in that position, can't you? It can maintain your anger. We've talked about in the past about how emotions are transient and you can move through them. But I think revenge keeps you back there, doesn't it? It keeps you in that angry time and in that angry moment, and you can't move on. So you have to let it go. It's just the letting go that I think most people find tricky.
Well, the problem with seeking revenge and wanting retribution, I mean, on the one hand, it's perfectly natural to feel like that when you've been wronged, and this is something that I think a lot of people struggle to. It's a concept that a lot of people struggle to accept, but I truly believe that it is right. We never feel good through negative emotion. There's no long-term sustainable improvement through negative emotion.
Yeah, it's tricky. It just reminds me of that story of, it's just come to me. Do you remember that guy who was playing for Colombia in the World Cup? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he was a left back. I think he was an Escobar. I think his name was Escobar, but I may be wrong there. He's playing for Colombia and he scored an own goal and Colombia got knocked out. Mm-hmm. And on his return home to Colombia, someone gunned him down in a restaurant as revenge.
Yeah, that's right.
That. I mean, it's and I remember thinking at the time, how twisted must you be to get to that point? I thought, in my mind it's a football match. You've got a chance to crack on and win the next one and put things right, which that guy didn't have the chance to do. Mm-hmm. But obviously it was to do with betting and drug cartels and all that. So it's quite a complex issue in the end. But I just thought that is the ultimate act of revenge, isn't it? And I can't imagine the gunman felt any better. The situation wasn't made better by that horrific murder, was it?
I'd challenge anyone to tell me that they feel good after responding like that.
No, I agree.
You have to find something else in you in order to get back to a place that feels sustainable and positive.
It is. I have trouble. I mean, I still can't forgive you for lying about winning a tease made off of me during a game of foam, which I clearly won, and you span the story to make it out that you'd won and convince not only yourself but other people, and I still can't forgive you. I feel anger.
Well, that's a different situation in as much as we both appear to have genuinely differing recollections of that situation. Because my recollection of it is that I most definitely won, and you have prevented me from getting a tease made all of these years. And well, I mean, to be honest, I've let it go now. You know, I've decided to turn the other cheek. If I want a tease made, I'll probably buy one. But you know, I've lived all these years without one, deprived of one by you. So you know, I've let it go. Although I was wondering, as you were saying that, I was wondering whether you've forgiven me for knocking the lenses out of your glasses at a football match once.
No, I still struggle with that a little bit, to be honest. It wasn't the fact that you knocked my glasses out. It was the fact that it was one of the very few games we went to see that West Ham were actually winning and winning handsomely. And I think they won 5-0, and you knocked the lens out of my glasses at the first goal. So I missed most of the rest of the game. I had a very blurry vision of Frank McAvenny netting a couple more. So as you can tell, I'm not totally over it, but time has been a bit of a healer on that one. Well,
I hate that idea. Time's a healer. But anyway, I think you'll find life will be more enjoyable if you just forgive me for that. You know, it was exuberance. It was an accident. I think you need to get over it. You need to let it go.
Yeah, I have, but I think it was your joy at my discomfort which made it even worse.
It's still, to be honest, it still brings me joy now. That thought. If I'm sort of trawling through, I don't know, a top 10 memories that always make me chuckle, that would definitely be right up there.
I have turned the other cheek.
That's good.
As taught in the Bible to do so.
Yeah, we only feel good when we show love. That's okay. A fact. That's a fact. You know, if you are genuinely kind and loving towards someone, it makes you feel good. I think I've said this before, but you know, a lot of people live under this misapprehension that you only feel love when someone shows it to you, but it's nonsense. You actually feel love when you show it to someone else. You know, it's if you think about someone that you really care about, when you do something nice for them, it makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't make any difference what their response is. You feel good as soon as you do it because it's coming from a place of love inside yourself, which I suppose in a way brings us to the second point, which is how do you forgive yourself?
That's exactly where I got to in my notes as well. So that was it was well interjected there, because it's something that comes up a lot, and we always try and encourage people to forgive themselves, because most people that come into addiction have got a really bad backstory, you know, of bad behaviour. And, you know, some of the stories can make your hair curl. But I think it's the shame and the guilt associated with it that can seriously hampers any attempts to achieve a successful period of sobriety. And it's that area that I think that people need a lot of help on, because it's really tough to show yourself any sort of love or affection when your addiction is in full flow. You have real disregard for yourself. You have a hatred for yourself.
Mm-hmm. I tend to ask people a particular question on this subject of self-loathing, which is, what is the purpose of not forgiving yourself? What is the benefit of you holding on to that anger, that frustration, that hatred? Because I think that's where you have to start. You know, when you're holding on to something that is causing you pain and is destructive to you, there must be a reason that you're doing that. So I try and urge people to look towards why it is they might be holding on to that.
Yeah, I can understand that. Certainly when your addiction's at its height, that you can't really take that on board. It's only when you come into recovery and you start to feel emotions again and start to have a bit of a level head that you can retrospectively look back and to try and forgive yourself.
Well, it wouldn't be, I mean, I guess, you know, that conversation, the conversation about self-forgiveness with an active addict probably would be a waste of time, to be honest.
Totally.
But I suspect you've got a lot of people in group. There are a lot of people in recovery who still find it difficult to forgive themselves. In fact, I know that to be the case.
Yes.
So I think what I'm saying to you is that I would urge people in that situation to ask themselves, why am I holding on to this? Why am I still punishing myself? And the second question is, what have I got to do to be forgiven? Because that's the problem. You know, in a sense, when you're forgiving someone else, there is a kind of clear rationale to forgiving someone else because it does free you in some way. But it's sometimes more difficult to apply that when you're talking about yourself. You know, the idea of being able to free yourself from yourself. But if you can't forgive yourself, I mean, where's that going to end? What has to happen for you to be able to say, actually, okay, I have made some bad choices. I've done some things that I wish I hadn't done, but I am where I am, right? What is it that stops people from getting to that point where they're able to draw a line under that? Because not understanding that, not knowing that is the thing that perpetuates it.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that. And, you know, earlier on where you sort of were quite dismissive about time being a healer, is that because you need to make other efforts alongside the passage of time to make a difference? Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely that. I don't think time is a healer at all. Time, I mean, you can see evidence of that anywhere. You can refuse to look at something that's happened, either that you've done or someone else has done. You can push it aside and, you know, put it in a box. In that situation, time is not a healer. You know, all that you're doing is, what's happening is time is passing and you're not dealing with that thing. You're just leaving it over to one side. And the idea that won't trip us up in the future, that won't hurt us in the future, I think is mythical. So in that sense, time is not a healer. Time can be a healer in conjunction with you acknowledging and facing some of the things that hurt you, or, you know, some of the things that maybe you've done or that you feel bad about. We can't ignore those things. You know, they're part of us. I think part of the difficulty, particularly for people who've had addiction problems, is they find it difficult to accept the addict part of themselves. And again, we've discussed this before, but you can't cut that part out. It's part of you. You know, you might not be in active addiction, but you can't, if you try and dismiss that part of you and say, well, actually that part of me, I need to find a way of removing that from myself. You can't remove that from your life. It's been a part of you. Hopefully it will never be that activity, that behavior, hopefully will never be a part of you in the future, but it's come from somewhere in you. You can't get rid of it. And so forgiving that behavior, or forgiving the destruction that it wrought on your life and other people's life, is so important to sustaining recovery. Because otherwise, I come back to the point I was making a minute ago, where is the future? What are you going to do? Carry that for the rest of your life? I mean, what is that going to say about your ability to live an enjoyable, sustainable, fruitful, fulfilling existence?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? It's a difficult one to comprehend. But whilst you were talking there, I sort of reminded of, or what came to my mind then was a third category. Then is when we crave forgiveness from other people, because that tends to come up as well. And that's something, when we don't have control upon how other people behave, it's tough, isn't it? And if you know, we can crave forgiveness for what we've done, and we're not in control of as to whether that's going to be offered or not.
Well, yeah. I suppose the question I'd ask in response to that would be, do you think, is there a difference between craving forgiveness from someone else and forgiving yourself? Because I'd argue that if you can forgive yourself, then the necessity for forgiveness from someone else becomes less important.
Good, you've answered that one then. So that third category is irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant. It's not relevant at all. And I'll tell you why it's not irrelevant. It is relevant because, in a sense, what you're doing is you're moving the problem. What you're saying to yourself is, I think your subtext, if I've understood you correctly, is kind of, if you forgive me, then maybe I'll be able to forgive myself.
Yeah.
And I think you have to say, you have to accept that you can't control the way someone else feels about you. If you've done something that has hurt somebody else, how they feel about it is out of your hands.
Yeah.
But at some point, you need to get to the point where you say, okay, I'm going to forgive myself for it, because otherwise, how can I possibly be of any benefit to myself or other people or society or the world without doing that. I'm a shell.
I'll tell you what a line that comes up that that I think can be. I'd like your opinion on it, really. When people say to you, "Well, yeah, I can forgive you, but I can't forget it." Is that some sort of passive aggressive way of dealing with someone, still bullying them to a certain extent?
Yeah, it's an interesting phrase because, of course, forgiveness, in a sense, it is the definition of forgiveness. You know, if I forgive something, of course, I'm not going to forget it, but that's not the point. You know, when I forgive someone, I'm saying what you did was not okay. I will remember it, but I'm letting go of it. So I think when someone says, I'll forgive what you did, but I'm not going to forget it, I suppose it depends from what sort of place inside someone that statement is coming. Yes, of course, it can be a passive-aggressive statement, in which case, well, that's not forgiveness then, is it?
No.
Or it could be just a genuine reflection of what has happened. I'm not going to forget what you did because it hurt me, but I am going to forgive it because I want to get on with my life and I don't want to carry it. I think that's okay. And I think it goes back, it echoes this point about how forgiveness is not for the other person. You're not, you know, it's not something you award to someone. When someone has wronged you, they have to deal with the forgiveness for them. They've got to do that.
Yeah.
I'm giving forgiveness to you for the teas made because I don't want to carry it anymore, right? I mean, I can't carry it because you never bought it for me. But so
I did see one in a charity shop the other day. I thought that'd be ideal. It was all grubby, but I'd have still discharged my responsibility towards you. Or perceived responsibility, because I don't think there was one that I lost one. But
that was a bit Freudian. That was a bit Freudian.
Anyway, when I was doing a bit of research on this, there's several things that come up when you're looking at how to forgive yourself. There's several sort of tips. I just wanted to run through a couple of these to see what you think, because I'm not totally convinced, but
okay.
you may your view upon this would be quite interesting. I think one of them was to focus on your emotions, where you give yourself permission to recognise and accept the feelings that have been triggered in you and welcome them. And I wasn't sure I understood that really.
I think what that's saying is before you can get to the point where you let go of something, you have to experience it. So if something's happened that's hurt you, then acknowledge those emotions first. Don't try and push them away. Don't try and ignore them. Experience them. Feel what you feel, because until you feel what you feel, you can't move past it. So I think that's quite good advice. I'd say, when something's happened and you're in a position where you either need to forgive yourself or you feel like there needs to be forgiveness involving someone else, you won't be able to do it until you've fully confronted the emotions that you need to experience as a result of what happened.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. There's one that came up which is in the big book, and I know you've got a copy of that, the AA Big Book.
Yeah,
and it's one of the steps that people have great trouble with. Mm-hmm. It's step 9, okay, in the 12-step program, and basically it says you may want to consider making amends to those you hurt by saying sorry or fixing the situation. Make direct amends to people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And people sort of stumble at that step. It's quite a big ask, isn't it, mm-hmm. to do that? And I'm just wondering of the validity of that, and to if that could be potentially more destructive than healing.
For who?
For yourself, for the addict.
Can you expand on that a little? Can you give me a kind of example where that might be the case?
I think that reopening old wounds, when perhaps I remember watching a film where someone was enacting step 9, and they'd made an appointment effectively to go and see this person from a long way in the past and go along to sort of make amends to that person. And that person wasn't really that interested. They'd long given it up, and they didn't see it as a problem. And it didn't seem to. All it did was to reawaken old feelings and old emotions that perhaps were already dealt with.
I think the second half of step 9 kind of covers that a little bit, doesn't it? But it's difficult. I think what you're illustrating there is that sometimes it's difficult to gauge when an apology might trigger negative feelings in the other person.
Yeah.
So I think that's right. There are some situations where if you're thinking about someone where something happened, I don't know, 5 years ago, you might want to think carefully before you kind of go back there and open that box again, because as you say, that person has probably moved on with their life. They've dealt with it in their own way. It might not be the best thing. I think there's something very important about understanding. I'll tell you the kind of question mark I have over that step. And that is the difficulty sometimes of recognizing when your apology is almost selfish. It's just like you're doing it just because it'll make you feel okay.
Yeah.
That's not okay, really. If it's going to make you feel okay, but it's going to upset someone else. I mean, one could argue actually you're kind of, is a bit of a hammer in a velvet glove. And your rationale for doing it is so that you don't have to carry it on your conscience. I think it's important when we think about forgiveness and about apology to think about the impact we're going to have on the other person as much as we're thinking about releasing ourselves from something. Don't you think?
I do, yeah. I think that's quite an interesting analogy, and I haven't really thought of that. But yeah, I can see that where you're looking to absolve yourself of certain things, and it's going to have an impact elsewhere. Quite a selfish way of looking at things. Yeah, I do, and that leads on a little bit to one of these other tips, if you like. And this comes up quite a lot. And the tip was to quit playing the tape. In other words, going back and replaying all these old mistakes you've made in your head. And one of the guys in groups was talking exactly about this, and he said that it's often things will go over in his mind, and he calls it tuning into shit FM, where it's all the every past mistake and every bit of bad behaviour in the past comes flooding back through your mind, normally late at night or just when you're trying to get off to sleep. It will suddenly, shit FM comes on loud and clear. And I think it's good advice to quit playing that tape, but it's quite difficult to actually do it.
Yeah, I think that's that is connected to the point about facing the emotions.
Yeah,
I think if you find that there are particular thoughts that come back to you constantly and they kind of go round and round and round, something's not dealt with. There's a reason why you're stuck on that thought. There's a reason why you can't get past it. And there's a reason why shit FM comes on. It's because something in there has not been confronted or dealt with. Now, it might be that you can confront it or deal with it yourself. It might be that you need some help to do so. But I would say that's what's happening there. If you've got a kind of constant loop of negative thoughts running, then you're stuck for a reason, and you need to understand what that reason is.
Which leads me on nicely, Rich, to the last point. There are several others, but I think we'd be going on a little bit too long. But the last point here was to get professional help, which I'm sure you'd agree with that sentiment. And from what you were saying there, about releasing yourself from this constantly playing tape, may need a little bit of input.
Yeah, I think sometimes one of the great benefits of therapy is that your therapist is kind of modeling what it is to not judge you. So when you're in a situation where you're finding it very difficult to avoid judging yourself, it can be quite handy to have someone who will listen to you and show you what it's like not to judge you. Now, I'm not suggesting that it's easy just to say, oh, that's okay because my therapist doesn't judge me, I'm going to stop doing it myself. But there is something sometimes quite liberating about feeling that you can be your entire authentic self in front of someone and they're still okay with you. They're the same every week. It doesn't matter what you tell them. It doesn't matter, how bad you think things have been. Sometimes we need that kind of modeled for us. We need to understand what it looks like to say to ourselves, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to hold on to this forever. You know, you're human. You'll make mistakes. You'll mess stuff up. You'll hurt people. That's what it is to be human.
I think that's important, and certainly we espouse that often in groups. People will come crawling back to groups with a tail between their legs because they've had a lapse or they've had a relapse, and they're surprised that no one is then judgmental about them. And we make it not a rule that we're not judgmental against other people. We're just not, because we've all been there. We know exactly how it feels, but we try and get over to people that coming back to groups is exactly the right thing to do, and don't feel bad about it. You're making a positive step by readdressing the situation, even though you failed at that particular hurdle or fallen at that particular hurdle. Just get up and we're crack on together again on this one.
I think one of the things that's important about self-forgiveness is understanding the importance of the balance between forgiving yourself but not letting yourself off the hook. There's a difference between saying, oh yeah, I'll forgive anything, and then feeling that that's a kind of carte blanche for going out and behaving as badly as you like. Sure. and being at the other end of the scale where you refuse to forgive anything. What you're trying to do is you're trying to strike that balance in the middle where you're saying, no, I'm going to hold myself to account for the things that I've done or the things that I do, and I'm going to take that seriously, but I'm not going to vilify myself to such an extent that life doesn't become, that life becomes miserable. I mean, what's the point? There's no point in that.
Yeah, I think the message there is, we can't undo what we've done in the past. We have to come to terms with that, but make sure we don't make the same mistakes going forward. So become a better person, become a better version of yourself by taking those bits out of the equation. And I think that summing up, again, when I was looking at the notes or looking at the research, I was saying that forgiveness is important to the healing process, since it allows you to let go of anger, guilt, shame, sadness, or any other feeling that you may be experiencing, and allow you to move on. So I think that sort of sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Why it's important to that forgiveness in all areas, it helps across all your emotions.
Yeah. When the thing that prevents forgiveness is usually something that has not been dealt with or processed.
I've come towards the end of my notes here, and it's been quite serious, really, isn't it? We haven't had much of a chuckle this week.
Well, we always the first one of the year is always serious. Last year it was suicide.
It was, yeah.
So, what have you learnt this week?
Well, I've learnt about homing pigeons. Okay.
Have you got one?
No, I haven't. But do you remember? You probably remember that when I was a kid, my dad used to keep pigeons in the pigeon loft in at the bottom of the garden there.
Yeah.
And they used to go out, be let out every day, and they used to come back in to be fed. But I was looking. There's David Attenborough was running this program and showing us how homing pigeons. You can take them 100 miles from home, and how they get back. And they were attaching GPSs to them and that sort of thing. I could see they go around in circles, and eventually they'd find a route home. But if you took that pigeon back to the same place again, they'd go almost directly home because they were following the roads. They would follow the A roads and the motorways.
Really?
They'd seen the first time round. So if you took them back to the same place, they'd do it much quicker because they remember. And nearly all of them followed the roads. In fact, some of them they'd follow a road along, there'd be a roundabout, and they'd go round the roundabout like a car would before they found the right exit. And I found it really bizarre. And even if they took pigeons to other places quite near where they'd first let them go, but different off to an angle, the pigeon would then fly back and find that road again and follow that road back to their house, So
it sounds like there's only partial truth in the phrase "as the crow flies."
Well, exactly, yes.
So the crow flies. Well, he's not. I don't think there are homing crows, are there?
They're not known for it, are they?
There's Counting Crows, which I don't suppose you like because they're an American band.
I'm not a big fan.
Well, that's fascinating. That is, yeah.
Yeah. So I learned that this week. What about yourself? Anything good?
Well, I was listening to. We were having some Mexican food, and Tom, my son, he put on a Spotify playlist of South American music.
Okay.
And there was this song, and I thought, It was called Tijuana Taxi, and I thought, blimey, that sounds like the theme tune to a 1970s sitcom. If you listen to it, you'll realise what I meant. And then later on, I realised that it was actually the theme tune to the 1970s classic TV programme It's a Knockout. So there we are.
No way.
Yeah, so that's what I've learned this week. I thought I'd made an amusing observation about a piece of music, but actually it was just my unconscious reminding me of something that I knew from 40 years ago. How about
Way
that?
back. Right, that's very good. I'm glad you brought that to the table. I feel nourished.
Yeah, I know it's not as good as my mince pie and Stilton thing.
I haven't tried that yet, but I've got the ingredients ready. I've got a mince
Have
pie.
you still got mince pies?
I have, yeah, and I've still got some Stilton ready. So I'll probably try it today. In fact,
It's January now. You should be doing veganuary. I mean, obviously you won't be doing dry January. Well, you will be doing dry January, but not as a specific exercise. Yeah, you should be going down the gym and eating nuts and fresh vegetables now.
I should be, but yeah, it's my 10th dry January in a row.
That's very good. Are you doing dry February?
Plus all the other months in between, yeah. So I'm quite happy with that.
Not moist March? Arid April?
We could do a whole episode on why dry January is not a good thing. But
We should do it in January, shouldn't we?
It is January, so yeah. So perhaps we should do it at some point. But I don't want to say too much about it at this point.
No, fair enough. All right, good. Well, we done then.
Okay, it's Sunday. It's the day of rest. We shouldn't really have been doing this, should we?
Well, I know, but we've got to go back to work tomorrow. I have anyway. I know you're having a day off laying about, but
yeah.
I'm back in the thick of it.
Good man.
All right, I'll speak to you soon.
Will do. Thanks, mate.
Laters.
Bye.
Bye. Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work, visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can find us on Facebook at Sideways Podcast, or you can email us to let us know what you think of the show. And finally, we want to thank you for listening and ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.
Through the years we had it all. The midnight whispers, midday calls. This house of cards, it had to fall. When you ask for forgiveness, you're asking too much. I have sheltered my